I'm trying to make this video talking about my favorite documentaries, and as I'm making the list, I quickly realized that a lot of my favorites are all on the same subject matter, and that is graffiti, or bombing, or tagging, or getting up, destroying shit, whatever the fuck you want to call it. This video is talking about the importance of the documentation of this temporary art style. What I mean by temporary art style is, you know, it's either going to get painted out by the city, it's going to get gone over by some asshole, or it's just going to fade away into oblivion. You know, it's exposed to the elements. It's not in a museum behind 3.5-inch thick glass and UV protected, all that kind of stuff. This shit is getting damage out there on the streets, you know what I mean? So it's not going to last forever. One thing that the city thinks that I think is fucking out of hand, you go underneath of a bridge, see some amazing graffiti, and there's a couple of needles on the ground. And the next week you go down there, the graffiti's gone, but then the volume of needles have tripled. You know, it's like they think that you can step on graffiti and catch hepatitis or something. They just leave the needles. It blows my fucking mind. But you can't talk about this type of stuff, this documentation, without bringing up two names: Henry Chalfant and Martha Cooper. These two photographers were there back in the mid-70s, taking the first people pretty much to take, other than graffiti writers, to take photos of the graffiti, high quality photos at that. And you know, after a while, they would meet graffiti writers, and then the graffiti writers would call them up and be like,
"Yo, Harry, this is Last. I bust out a rooftop on the 6th line, bright colors, Last blockbuster is fresh, done by Vice Boys, you know the crew." Yo,
and they would go do it, and they would document this stuff, and they're like the only people with the photos of this shit that is now either in the fucking East River, painted out forever, or just like forgotten about. So Style Wars is so important because it showcases not only the graffiti writer's point of view, but the mayor's point of view at the time.
Well, I've seen comparable graffiti, not necessarily these particular ones.
The head of the transit authority's point of view at the time.
Is that an art form? I don't know. I'm not an art critic. But I can sure as hell tell you that that's a crime.
And other just people walking down the street. And like I said, it's 1983. It's pre-internet. It's pre-cell phone. It's like these guys are ghosts. You know what I mean? It's like if you either get a hold of them when you do or you don't. And it's just, to me, I think you take a guy like Scheme. He's interviewed with his mom right beside him. And it's like, this is some real shit, man. This is so fucking cool to see because she thinks it's asinine. And he thinks it's like be-all, end-all, and that's the contrast, you know? Some people get it, some people don't. The parents don't want to see their kids out vandalizing stuff, but the kids, they want to fucking rebel. They want to do... If you haven't ever done graffiti, then you do not understand that fucking feeling. You know what I mean? And I think it's such a great documentary because not only does it show, like, the ups...
This is it! This is it! This is it!
It shows the downs.
Look, graffiti doesn't make your life better. It just makes your neighborhood look worse.
It shows the beefs.
Gus started pulling some shit with me, and I'm telling you, he's lucky you didn't catch him by that wall. Because if we would have been there, even if you were shooting a movie, it would have just been boom, boom, boom. And that's the way it would have went.
It shows, you know, people getting upset over their stuff getting gone over because you have an emotional attachment to it.
I wouldn't mind if he would have went over one of my old cars, you know, but that was fresh. It was a brand new burner. It only ran for 2 days, you know. And he didn't even get a chance to run on the line, just like, you know, and they went over, and I feel, you know, that hurt me, you know.
Going back and it's been gone over, you're going to be like, what the fuck? I did that. I took my time to do that, and now someone went over it. And it's like this graffiti shit, it runs deep with people, man. It is an art form, and people do take it very seriously. People have died over this shit. People have gotten beaten up. People have lost their families and stuff because it's some type of addiction that it can't be beat, you know. It's almost like the fucking heroin needles, you know, or the whatever. Like, it's like that. It's an addiction almost worse than that because this stuff, people, they're not just going out and buying paint. For like a lot of people, especially in Star Wars, like they're stealing their paint, man.
I love robbing paint. I know, you know, everybody knows how you rob it, and like he gets me souped up, and sometimes I'll go and get 15 cans at a time, you know, stuffing it in your coat, in your shirt, down the back of your pants. It's mainly with the big coat, and like 15 cans, you figure it out, it's like over $50. You going into stores, like we could go one day and get 100 cans at a time.
Like, where the fuck are these kids getting these crates full of paint? It's obvious, but you know, with that being said, Style Wars cannot be slept on. It is the grandfather of the graffiti documentary for sure. Moving on to Infamy.
Why did people carve the rocks, you know what I mean, and put the president's faces on there, you know, Mount Rushmore? Why did they do that? They got a big kick out of doing big faces, or did they want it to leave a mark? They wanted to leave a mark. They said, these people right here, they are founding fathers. So we're going to put their big faces on this mountain, and fuck who don't like it.
It's a film from 2005, and it's more of your traditional documentary compared to Star Wars, where Star Wars has got moments that feel almost cinematic. This movie is more like you got interviews with the writers.
Why did I start doing graffiti? I was always like that kid to try to get everybody's attention in class. At home, I don't know, I guess I was just like scared, you know, like I wasn't allowed to be free in my speaking or my behavior or anything, you know, so.
And then you got like other writers, and then they kind of get interwoven.
This is my office.
LA is the gallery, the streets of New York is the gallery, the streets of Chicago is the gallery. You can go to some places in LA where there's railroad tracks and crazy ass walls, you're gonna see that art for free. You might pay for being in the wrong place.
You got this guy named Joe Connolly, who's known as the Graffiti Gorilla, and he would just paint out all the graffiti in his neighborhood and stuff.
This will take 4 seconds to get rid of this. One time I was working on Crenshaw, a sign, all of a sudden I heard a backfire, found a bullet hole in the sign. So somebody apparently had maybe shot at me when I was out there.
So he's interesting, but you're there for the writers, and you're there for the stories. People like Saber, people like Toomer, people like NM, people like Earsnot, all these guys that are just in Claw, who's like a chick, and she's great, and a lot of people think she's not great, especially if you read the comments on that fucking documentary on YouTube, because most of the people that are writing comments on these documentaries have never done graffiti in their life. They just fucking draw in a sketchbook, and they're like, yeah, I do graffiti. It's like, you don't. If you're not doing it illegally, shut the fuck up. Like, Star Wars is more, like, it touches on some of the darker side, but Infamy lets you know that people are actively dying out there for this shit. Like, the artist Saber tells a story of how his friend got his head blown off, and this guy Toomer tells a story of how this young kid died in his arms, and all he wanted to do was be down with his crew and all that, and he feels responsible for it. So like I said, it's not just the pretty parts and, like, you know, like, oh, this cool train artwork. No, it's like people are out here getting hurt and losing their family and stuff, man. But those guys did it so we don't have to. You know what I mean? We can enjoy it through these documentaries. So Infamy is one you cannot sleep on. Moving on to probably the first one that I ever seen, and it's from about 2004, 2005 as well. It's called Getting Up. And
graffiti is freedom. You know, that's what graffiti is to me, pure freedom.
There's definitely a rush. You're in there, you're sneaking in, you're with your homeboys. There's like this feeling, you know, you hear trains, the motor kind of clicking on and off. You hear the tracks change. There's all these elements that add to the whole mystique of that's, in a way, you know, you can't even really describe that to people now.
It was a documentary that came out with the Mark Echo video game called Getting Up, which was a graffiti video game, which was like the best fucking video game of all time. It was so addicting, so fun, taught me about a lot of legendary artists and stuff. I wouldn't know about a lot of legendary artists without seeing, or without playing that game, without seeing the documentary that came with it and stuff. And this one is more of your cut and paste, kind of very straightforward, like a little bit of history, a little bit of bombing, but mostly just etiquette.
You've been in the game for 5 minutes. How you gonna go over him? You know, and nobody from their crew would pull them aside and smack them a couple of times and be like, "Money, you can't go over this. That shit's been there for 20 years. You just went over some shit that's been there for 20 years because you're an idiot."
And stuff like that. It's really good. It's the shortest documentary, I would say, but it's about a half hour long. But it's really well done, really well put together. And you got artists in there like Cope 2, you got Chino, you got Scuff, you got J.A., you got fucking Futura 2000. You got, like, you got some of the heavy hitters of the time, you know. Like, they didn't just grab, you know, people that were relevant for a few years. They got guys in that one that have been rocking for like 20, 30 years, and I really appreciate that. And you get to see some cool art, you get to see... you get to hear some cool stories and stuff, and, you know, I think Getting Up is one of, probably, it has to be the first one that I definitely seen, followed by Star Wars. moving on to this shit I just found out as well a couple of months ago. VideoGraff. Dude who was making these like videos with graffiti writers, going out and filming them bomb and all that stuff, and interviews.
Yo man, what you write, man?
You're right. Kid Cat 1, Brooklyn.
So what crews you down with?
Down for RIS, MTK, WKS, AOK, AMW, all the crews that are running shit.
And all that shit, and it's like one of the best things I ever discovered, man. Like there's Volume 4 is on YouTube in its entirety, and it interviews a guy named Ket, and interviews this guy Clark, and his buddy, I forget what his name was, but all these different dudes that just do their thing and do it with pride and make it look amazing. Like, it makes, like, if you're not a skilled graffiti writer, it's stuff like this that makes you want to just hang up your can, but at the same time, if you do hang up your can, you'll never get that good because you got to get the practice in, you know what I mean? So VideoGraff is early 90s, and it shows. It shows, man, because these guys don't fuck around. They sound hardcore, and they look hardcore. Their graffiti's great. Now, the last documentary that I want to talk about real fast, or just kind of, you know, touch upon for sure, is the Robbo versus Bansky documentary.
That was until one of them committed an act deemed so hostile it shocked the graffiti world.
It's caused fights. Blood is drawn for the disrespect that it caused.
And started the most divisive art feud since Matisse and Picasso.
It is a graffiti war. He started it, and, you know, I'll carry on until I'm finished.
Now, this is the documentary that you're going to want to watch in order to learn the difference between street art and graffiti. So, I don't want to say any more than that, man. Watch this one first, because that will lay the groundwork. And if you're feeling saucy, check out one called Exit Through the Gift Shop. It's actually made by Bansky. I'm not one of those, like, guys that's like, Bansky is, like, the best artist. I think that shit is whack. That shit is whack, man. You're doing stencils. Okay, cutting out a stencil, that's hard to do. Going out and fucking painting a mural with like 15 different colors illegally, that's talent, man. So, with that being said, those are some of my favorite graffiti documentaries out there. And stay tuned for like horror films and other unrelated documentaries, because I love watching them, man. It's some of my favorite shit to do. So, definitely, I thank you guys for watching. And yeah, stay tuned for more shit.
People don't know what I look like until now. Until they start going to the movies. They're gonna see my face. Big deal. Anybody tries to screw around with me and my friends, I go over everything they got forever. Everybody from Brooklyn to Manhattan. Everybody.